Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. The growing calls to make sure we build to better protect homes from wildfires.
Do we want to be proactive and get ahead of it?
And why there's no national strategy yet. The highest gas prices this year.
And it's pinching on the budget a bit.
How people are getting creative and getting around the pain at the pump. Nearly a century later, another step toward reconciliation.
Today was probably one of the most happy days in my life because I'm really, really emotional right now.
The totem pole belonging to a BC First Nation making its way home from Scotland.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Anita Bathe. We begin tonight with the latest wildfire developments out of West Kelowna. The number of homes now said to be damaged or destroyed has gone up, but recovery mode is in full swing. Our reporter Karen Larson is live there tonight. Karen, that transition from fighting the fires to now being able to look forward is a pretty big deal. What's made that possible?
Well, quite simply, Anita, it's the weather. The past few days have been cooperating, with much lower winds, giving everyone this welcome reprieve. Only a week ago, no one knew who had the upper hand, the wildfires or the people doing their best to fight them. Today, officials said cautiously, the worst appears to be over. New footage released by BC Wildfire shows the astounding force and utter destructiveness of wildfires that raged through the central Okanagan last week.
We're only 11 days into what is a historical natural disaster.
Today, officials updated the number of structures lost in the McDougall Creek wildfire, adding 7 more to bring the total to 189. It remains remarkable that no one died. And though wildfires are no longer threatening lives or buildings, they are expected to linger in the backcountry for a very long time.
There is still a lot of fire behind our community. We flew over quite a portion of it yesterday. This fire will be with us for a while, not in the streets and neighborhoods, but in the hills above.
Every day, stories emerge about the heroic efforts of firefighters. Rose Valley Elementary School, the latest example. Fire burned right up to the school grounds, but no further thanks to building protection crews.
I'm incredibly grateful to our firefighters and first responders. They certainly made it a priority. They had sprinklers up on the roof. We had fire trucks there and firefighters directly fighting the blaze to keep it away from the school, and they were successful.
All public schools in the central Okanagan are expected to open for the new school year on schedule, with extra support for students and families who need it.
We are working with our staff to remind them of the best practice around trauma-informed practice. We expect a lot of people have been traumatized by this event, staff and students.
So where did the fire, it was on the other side of this hill?
Life is slowly returning to normal for many in the Okanagan Valley, if normal includes the continued presence of water-bombing helicopters.
Nature's getting us cleared up, but I still think we have fires over the hill that's good to come back, so time will tell.
As of Monday, 2,400 properties in the region remain under evacuation order.
Okay, Karen, you just mentioned there are still many properties under evacuation order. So what are happening with the people who live in those homes?
Well, the ones who have lost their homes or whose homes have suffered significant damage are being notified slowly, one at a time. As you can imagine, it's very difficult news to hear. So escorts are being arranged to take some property owners into their properties. But in a few neighborhoods, that's still not possible because it's just too dangerous. Roads are impassable. And what they refer to as danger trees, those are trees that have burned but are still standing, but are at risk of falling over at any moment. Those are an issue. We heard about a house, 2 homes actually, side by side neighbors, where one home burnt down completely. The other one was left standing, but the chimney from the burnt down home is now leaning, threatening to fall on the house that's still standing. So those are the sort of situations that the recovery crews are encountering and having to fix before they can bring people in. Officials said today it could be weeks for some people whose homes are still livable for them to return. Anita?
Karen Larson reporting live in West Kelowna tonight. Thank you. Meanwhile, evacuees in the Shuswap area are starting to get a clearer picture of what they'll be going home to. Today, fire personnel started notifying residents about properties affected by wildfire there. Let's bring in Tanya Fletcher live with more on this side of things. Tanya, what is the latest from that region?
Anita, today locals are starting to get, as you say, a better idea of the damage that this fire has already done. It's believed the number of properties destroyed stands at 131, with another 37 damaged. There hasn't been a big change to the size of the Bush Creek East fire in that Shuswap area over the past week or so. The other good news, smoky conditions have actually been keeping the fire behavior relatively static. The winds are expected to pick up overnight, though. Fire officials are hoping to get some rain around this time tomorrow. That should help, too. But another saving grace has been the shorter days as we head into September.
This time of year, the days are getting a little shorter very quickly and the nights are getting a little longer. That is a huge help for us on the fire front. It might not seem significant, but it is. Just allows less burning period in the day, less drying conditions, and more significant time of night to recover.
Tanya, there's also been some confusion around the messaging with evacuation orders and whether that has sort of changed over the years. What is the province saying about that today?
Yeah, we've been hearing from some in the Shuswap region who say they used to be allowed to shelter in place, say during wildfire evacuations. We asked BC's Emergencies Management Minister about that today. She says the language has always been the same and that really an order to leave is an order to leave. In fact, since it was created in 1993, BC's emergency program legislation has never been updated. That is about to change, though, this fall with the introduction of the Emergency and Disaster Management Act.
And it will be one of the most significant overhauls of that Emergency Program Act in decades. So that will be tabled this fall. However, the powers that are afforded to local authorities, First Nations, regional districts to issue evacuation orders will carry through into the new legislation.
In the meantime, Ottawa is extending its support with a boost again from the Canadian Armed Forces. Troops arrived at the Vernon Cadet Camp today. That's where they'll receive training later this week before being redeployed. BC has applied as well for federal funding for disaster financial assistance. We know that, but the province said it expects to hear back imminently on that. That money will pay for repairing public infrastructure like roads and buildings, along with the massive cleanup effort that's ahead. And by the way, since April 1st, BC has now spent around $585 million on fighting this year's fires province-wide. Anita.
Wow. Okay, Tanya Fletcher live with us tonight. Thank you. And with so many of those communities now assessing the damage from this unprecedented wildfire season, others are already thinking of the next one. Kayla Hensel now with the growing calls to change how we build our homes across the country.
This is all that's left of Alice Fisher's home, destroyed in the Nova Scotia wildfires back in May.
It talks about the flames traveling quickly.
She's been looking into options to build her new home better.
After living through what we've lived through and feeling that numbness.
This home has hardy board siding, and so if the fire approaches, this siding will not melt.
Paul Kovacs has been researching how to make homes fire resilient for 25 years. He says siding is just one part of it. People should also have fire resilient roofs and decks.
I still dream of the day when wildfire protection becomes part of the building code and a requirement for all the new homes going up all across Canada.
Canada does have a board responsible for national building codes. There's nothing in the codes to address wildfire protection right now. Climate change adaptation is a priority in the works, but the new codes won't be ready for another 2 years. In the meantime, there's nothing stopping provinces and territories from creating their own requirements.
This is the first time that we've had this many homes lost to a wildfire, and I really hope it's the last.
Pam Lovelace is the municipal councillor responsible for the Halifax district that lost 150 homes. She's asked staff to look at strategies to mitigate risk.
I think it's important for us to consider that. We don't know what the cost will be. We don't know if the materials are even available.
Kovacs says these measures generally cost between $5,000 and $10,000. After the fires in Lytton, BC 2 years ago, the federal government provided grants to homeowners building fire-resistant homes.
It's all about whether we want to pay a cost up front for all these fires, or do we want to be proactive and get ahead of it?
Fisher says she's considering it. anything to provide a measure of safety after losing everything. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Halifax.
Yeah, lots to think about for sure, and probably needs to be done sooner rather than later. Darius Madavi joins us now with the first look at the weather and a little bit of cooling in store.
That's right. So we still have temperatures above seasonal for the southern interior, not much. The bigger place where we're seeing temperatures well above seasonal, we're talking anywhere from 8 to 10 degrees above what we'd normally see, is further up north. So it's just in the 30s, so less cooler than in the southern interior, but for the area, really uncommon. So we have some heat warnings in place up here. We had some in place for the north coast as well, just because those temperatures aren't usually what we'd see in those areas. But over the next few days, temperatures are going to come down for most of the province. Stick around for a little while in the north, but we see some cooling in the south as the low pressure moves in. We're already seeing those effects here in Vancouver, so we had a cooler day today. And then by Wednesday, those temperatures come way down to well below seasonal for much of the southern interior. And it's not the only thing the low pressure system is bringing. We have lots of rain on the way. So starting on the coast, I know the island was already seeing some thunderstorms and some rain showers today, moving over. So by tonight, we can expect some rain in Vancouver, and that's going to spread into the interior. We'll talk more about where and when we're going to see that rain and just how much of it later. But for tonight, just know that in Vancouver, you can expect some rain, a rainy evening at least, potentially a thunderstorming evening as well. I'd say there's a good chance that we're going to see at least some amount of precipitation by tomorrow morning.
An evening to be cozy on the couch.
Definitely.
Thanks, Darius.
Thanks.
Well, it's just one more step in reconciliation. A hand-carved 19th century totem pole is being returned to a BC First Nation after 94 years in the National Museum of Scotland. But as Renee Filipponi reports, there are huge logistical challenges that come with getting the pole here.
It's a moment correcting a historic wrong, as a delegation from the Nisga'a Nation held a ceremony to mark the start of this totem pole's journey home.
Today was probably one of the most happy days in my life, because I'm really, really emotional right now.
It was carved in the 1860s in memory of Simagit Nisjal's ancestor, who died protecting his nation. It was stolen in 1929 and sold to the National Museum of Scotland.
The time was right for it to return to where it should never have been taken from in the first place.
The pole is seen as a living being by the Nisga'a people.
When a pole is carved, just right before it's to be raised, there is a ceremony that's performed, and the carver breathes life back into that pole.
The ceremony in Scotland put the pole to rest for its long journey home. This is the second time this year a totem pole has been repatriated. The Newhalk First Nation welcomed this pole home after it was taken more than 100 years ago.
A number of years back, I think you would have seen some uncertainty in the parts of museums.
This museum director says there is an increased willingness to right past wrongs, but more can be done.
I think there's a role for museums here to play in that conversation as well, to help institutions that are farther away.
The 11-meter totem pole will take weeks to maneuver out of the museum through a window and will be flown back on a military aircraft. Its return will be celebrated with a community feast at the end of next month.
My children's children and the rest of my family, their children, it'll be there for them for years.
One step on the journey of reconciliation as a pole from the past finds its way back. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, gas prices are on the rise again in Metro Vancouver, and they've hit the highest so far this year. Michelle Gomez is looking at what people are doing to save some money.
Gas prices hovered around $2.10 in Metro Vancouver today.
It's getting high, and it's pinching on the budget a bit, but we're managing.
Henry Ng is trying different tactics to save at the pump.
We're gonna go on a little road trip to Cultus Lake. So I'm just topping it up a touch and then filling up the rest out there because I know it's a little bit cheaper out there. Hoping to save whatever we can.
Cameron Gray is also getting creative.
I'm careful about combining my trips. So if I'm like today, I've got 3 things I'm going to do while I'm driving. One of them is get gas, and so I try to combine the trips so I don't drive as often.
BC has the highest gas prices across the country at an average of $1.94 per liter. The nationwide average is $1.68. Vijay Muralidharan owns a petroleum consulting firm in Calgary and follows gas prices closely. He says there are a number of reasons for the recent increase.
A big refinery just went on fire the other day, so that's caused this big spurt in pricing. The other issue that's affecting is the possibility of Hurricane Idia that could come and impact the production. And the fear of the hurricane coming in and affecting the production has also made the situation worse.
And he says fuel prices impact not just drivers, but everyone. Diesel reached $2.20 per liter, a cost that contributes to inflation.
The diesel pricing has increased. That is a big negative impact on the economy because it increases price levels, and that's sticky, and that affects general inflation.
Heidi Liu is already feeling the pinch.
It's just getting more and more expensive, so we are trying to reduce the car uses. So my salary is the same, but gas is getting more and more.
Muralidharan says prices may pull back as people drive less in the fall, but will likely remain high over the upcoming long weekend. Michelle Gomez, CBC News, Vancouver.
The BC government is putting money toward the construction of 3,500 new rental homes for people with moderate to low incomes. It's now accepting proposals from nonprofits, First Nations, and municipalities who want the funding to build the homes. Vancouver Mayor Ken Sim says this is much needed given the record-breaking rent prices in this city.
These homes are for those who need them the most, and while today's announcement is certainly good news, I think we can all agree we still need to do more. This is all being done through the province's Community Housing Fund, and for homes built through the program, rents are set at 30% below the resident's income. CHF is aiming to build 20,000 new homes by 2032, and the province says 9,000 of those are already in progress. Proposals will be accepted until the middle of November. Well, Canada's men's soccer coach is stepping down to join Toronto FC instead. John Herdman has been coaching Team Canada at the international level for more than a decade, leading the women's team to the Olympics in 2012 and 2016, and the men's team to the 2022 World Cup. He now faces the daunting task of restoring the Major League Soccer club Toronto FC to its former glory, a team that was at its peak in 2017. Canada Soccer has started its search for a replacement coach. Okay, heat and drought are affecting animals across this province, and salmon are the latest to be impacted. In Chilliwack, the Cheam First Nation has stepped in to rescue at-risk salmon by relocating them to cooler water. But as our Camille Vernet reports, warm temperatures aren't the only thing impacting the habitats.
This creek, running between a highway and a golf course, is an important habitat for young coho salmon, but it's drying up. It's not even 9 a.m. and the sun is already blazing, scorching the water and threatening the fish.
It's 18.9 degrees.
This biologist says that by afternoon, the water will be too hot for salmon to survive.
Yeah, it's pretty clear this one's not going to make it. My expectation is in the next couple of hours, the bird's going to take it.
Fort Creek runs through Cheam First Nation. It's here that members of the nation saw fish being trapped in water as early as July. They took matters into their own hands.
People volunteered and came and helped transport the salmonoid to other locations.
Mike Pearson was part of the team that saved 2,800 juvenile fish.
So the fact that almost a third of the fish that we caught were in about 3% of the habitat, crammed up against the barrier at the upstream end, tells me they were desperately trying to get out of here.
Heat and drought isn't the only factor threatening fish. The stream didn't always look like this.
You can see a flat, dry channel, completely unprotected from the sun, eroding banks. Previous to the work being done, this was a very well-shaded stream. The stream bed was about here. It was almost a meter higher.
Last August, the city of Chilliwack carried out some work on the stream, clearing vegetation along the banks.
It's devastating to see what has changed here, and knowing that the salmon are not surviving when they return back here.
The city explained they had to do this after the intense flooding in November 2021. They say they had to remove the sediment to restore fish access.
It is certainly not what you would call restoration. I mean, the only benefit that I can see in going that deep is to prevent flooding on the golf course.
Chief Victor says First Nations were not consulted in the work.
There needs to be proper consultation and consent with First Nations peoples. And we need to have a focus not just on how the water flows through, but what is the impact to the habitat? What is the impact to the salmon?
Even this crayfish has fled the water, trying to find a cool spot in the shade.
The stream was probably too hot for it. We're going to carefully take it back up to where we release the salmon, where it's cooler water, and hopefully have a better chance of survival.
The cohos were moved here upstream in this shaded area where the water is much cooler.
12.7 degrees. So they've got great water quality and good habitat. They'll be happy here.
The Chiam Nation wants the creek to be restored. Otherwise, year after year, they will have to salvage fish again and again to ensure their survival. Camille Vernet, CBC News, Chilliwack.
We know a lot of screen time isn't good for us, but turns out it's worse for babies. We'll discuss why and what alternatives parents have coming up in our bi-weekly health column live with Dr. Melissa Lem. Thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream tonight. Some election candidates got a taste of what it's like to live below the poverty line. The CBC's Ian Froese reports politicians took part in an experiment showing what different income levels can get you for lunch.
Thank you.
These politicians came out to get served a meal and a few lessons. Candidates in the upcoming provincial election were treated to a 3-course meal. Their dishes depend on their income levels. One meal is what an MLA could afford, like Arctic char. Another meal for someone on employment assistance, spaghetti with tomato sauce. A different meal for people on disability supports, dal with vegetables. The MLA menu included an appetizer, but not for people on employment assistance or disability support. Instead, they filled out government support applications.
What we tried to show is not only are you getting a less plentiful meal, you're also having to do a bit of work.
Melissa Graham helped organize the event. She's with the Manitoba League of Persons with Disabilities.
We thought it would be a good idea to bring everyone together and have a meal and show some of the differences between not just an MLA salary and someone on social assistance, but also the differences between those categories.
Speakers at the event hoped the politicians learn from what they heard. For example, people on disability get more than those on employment assistance, but not by much.
$1,278 a month. Ridiculous. I don't know how people live on that little bit of money.
Some candidates say they're low income themselves.
I understand because I live it. I live under EIA.
When you're low income, you kind of just eat what you can. You kind of get what you can from your food bank, from your neighbors.
Others say the experience was humbling.
Courses were arriving for me and they had nothing, right? So at one point, I in fact tried to pass my salad off to Melissa sitting next to me, and she said, no, that's cheating.
I think this is a very good experiential event, which touches your core and makes you want to advocate for more.
Now it's up to the politicians to serve up a platform that helps people struggling to get by. Ian Froese, CBC News, Winnipeg.
So sometimes when faced with a crying baby, for many, the easiest solution can be to hand them an iPad and press play. But turns out, if that's happening before the age of 1, quite a bit, it may not be so great for development. A study published by the Journal of the American Medical Association has found an association between more screen time exposure and delays in baby development. Everything from motor abilities to speech skills can be impacted. The research shows that 1-year-olds exposed to more screen time experience these delays at age 2 and age 4, meaning parents may not actually know how their baby's habits are affecting them until years later. For more on this, CBC Health columnist Dr. Melissa Lem joins us live. Dr. Lem, what is it that makes face-to-face interaction so important for babies, and why aren't educational shows, not just the ones that aren't educational, but why aren't the ones where they're actually learning something an equal substitute?
Anita, the science is really clear that babies learn best when they're playing actively and interacting with people in the real world. And unfortunately, screen time takes away from this important developmental time. Face-to-face interactions also teach babies a lot about communication and detecting emotion that educational shows and other screen time just can't give them. Research also tells us that young children who get too much screen time are at higher risk of being overweight, sleep deprived, and nearsighted. And even just having a TV on in the background can affect babies' ability to play and interact. And that's why, because of all this research, the Canadian Pediatric Society recommends that babies under 2 years old, other than video chats with family and friends, get 0 routine screen time per week and per day.
Wow, okay. And do we know if those kids who are exposed to a lot of screen time before 1, do they eventually catch up to their peers, and if so, when?
Well, the jury's kind of out on that because there aren't a lot of good longitudinal studies about this area. And it's also hard to tease out those early effects because kids who get a lot of screen time when they're babies tend to get more when they're older too. But in terms of long-term effects, we do know that there is research from Japan showing that when babies get more screen time, they have worse attention, memory, and school performance at 9 years old. But on the flip side, if those same kids also get some outdoor time, a lot of nature time, then that blunts the negative effects of screen time by about 20%. So if your young ones are getting more screen time than you'd like, just be sure to give them a lot of outdoor time in nature too.
At what age can children start spending more time on screens without those negative consequences to their development?
Well, once they reach the age of 2, kids do gain the ability to learn some things from screens, especially when it involves interaction and question and answer, like on Sesame Street, for example. But up until age 5, there's still no better teacher than real life play and interaction, which is why in Canada we recommend limiting screen time to no more than an hour per day in kids ages 2 to 5. At 6 and up, things get a bit more complicated, so it's important to talk with your family and come up with an overall family media plan. But overall, you can tell that your older child might be getting too much screen time when they start to complain about being bored without their screens. They overreact when you set limits on their screen time, or they start having problems with school or sleep, exercising or socializing.
A lot of parents use screens to occupy their babies while out of the house or doing errands. Is there an alternative for a busy parent or a frustrated parent?
Well, I mean, first of all, I do want to say as a parent myself, I get it. Screens can be useful sometimes to distract kids, like, for example, in my office during an ear exam or an immunization, but we don't want to make it into a regular habit. So in terms of things you can do for those really young ones, baby wearing, like in a sling or a carrier, can help when you need your hands free to do something. If you're home, you can set up a baby-proofed area with some interesting toys in it and play music to buy yourself some time. And if you're on the go, this is a trick I like to use on long trips, bringing a few different toys or books with you and giving them to your baby one at a time can also help. And just on that topic of busy parents, we should be trying to model healthy screen time ourselves. Research shows that when parents are distracted by their cell phones, that they're less responsive to their kids and they tend to overreact to their behavior. So good things happen with our own parenting when we put those screens away too.
For sure. Family physician and CBC Health columnist Dr. Melissa Lem, thank you.
Thanks, Anita.
All right, we are just getting some news coming in right now. Canadian rap icon Drake is in town. He was meant to perform tonight, in about an hour or so. But according to Rogers Arena, the show has now been rescheduled to Wednesday. Rogers Arena is saying this is because of an issue with a newly installed video board. Now, before we knew all of this, we sent our Janella Hamilton down to Rogers Arena to talk to Drake fans about what they were excited for about tonight. Now, of course, this is still relevant because the show is still happening on Wednesday. Take a look.
A huge Drake fan since like I listened to like, his first album, So Far Gone. Oh my goodness, I am the biggest Drake fan. So I had to convince these two to get tickets when they first came out, and I think when they dropped, they were like 1,000, and we were considering it. But then like they went down to 550. We're like, we have to buy it because it's worth the experience.
I feel like he's very nostalgic, and his like music style is really nice because like he got all different type of vibes that you can listen to.
It's good vibes. It's just going crazy. You know, get a little turn. Even though we have seats, we're gonna be jumping up and down. I know that for a fact. So.
Great music. I can't lie. Energy and charisma as well. His music, energy, charisma. We've seen like on social media about his other performances and how he brings out other people, and it's just like the energy is amazing. So we had to be involved because we weren't. We actually came from Calgary for this concert. So it was like a little once-in-a-lifetime experience for us.
It's amazing. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for my daughter, so it just brings us another bonding moment together.
A mass shooting in Florida being labeled a racially motivated crime. What we know about the 3 black victims and the white gunman after the break.
Ready? Smile.
It was Here Come the Brides at Queen Elizabeth Park this afternoon. The sunken garden was overflowing, and yes, they're all wedding parties. While one group was primping on one side of the hedge, another was smiling for the camera on the other. Photographers jockeyed for position, and there were lineups for the prime photo spots.
Well, we just have to wait in line, and you got hopefully we could get the best shots.
We're waiting for the falls right there.
For a waterfall shot?
Yeah, for a waterfall shot.
The bridge. You're waiting in line for a bridge shot?
Yes.
Bridge pictures.
Put your left foot forward, okay, both of you? That's good. Very good, right? That's nice.
Put your arm around her waist.
Oh,
do it.
There were nearly 30 photographers clicking away in every corner of the park, and a wedding party with each and every one of them. First come, first served. How early do you have to get here?
As soon after the wedding ceremony as possible.
Or else?
Or else you run the risk of not getting a spot. It pays to have a lot of men in the wedding party with you as well.
Why?
Well, they're usually good muscle if somebody decides they want the spot before I'm finished with it.
And parking? Well, it's limo bumper to limo bumper.
If you want to park legally, it's rather difficult, but illegal parking is fairly easy to come by.
It's hard to find parking up here.
We had to walk a long way from the car to come here, and I don't really like the idea of walking all the way back. I'm pooped. It was incredible today. I think everyone in the city's getting married today.
And if they made it through this, the marriage should be a snap. Tammy Tomlinson, CBC News, Vancouver.
The Northwest Territories is pushing back its planned general election by 6 weeks after much of its population was forced to leave their homes because of wildfires. The fire that had been pushing towards Yellowknife is now considered held, no longer out of control. Now, that's a welcome change, and as Yvette Brand explains, it has officials eyeing plans to eventually bring people home.
From Hay River, flames can be seen burning above the trees just over a kilometer from town.
You never know when things are going to happen.
This man watched neighbors flee last week, but stayed behind.
People drove through walls of flames, and how no one died or got injured, I'm amazed. I passed about 15 vehicles on the way out that were either broke down or burnt completely.
He helps fire crews, watches over his property, and feeds pets running loose.
And the fire's just about to the highway here.
He posts videos so people can see the efforts to save homes.
People are working trying to get you home, so just be patient. They're doing their best they can to protect your properties.
But they're facing big challenges, including a northern heat wave with temperature highs near 30 degrees expected for days.
When you got hot temperatures and low levels of moisture in the air, you get bigger fire activity.
Winds threaten to make a volatile situation worse.
The fires, the way they are responding right now, they've never ever seen it before.
With 70% of the territory's population forced out, thousands are wondering when they can go home. The fire-threatening Yellowknife is now considered held, so talk is turning to a return-to-home plan. Sheila Bassi-Kellett is Yellowknife's city manager.
So before all 20,000 of our friends and family are able to come back, we need to make sure that certain things are in place so that we're taking a phased approach.
In BC's southern interior, some are now home.
And we are back home now, so that's a blessing.
Others await word to find out if their home is one of the more than 300 lost near Kelowna or in the Shuswap.
I know a lot of you're tired of hearing it. I'm tired of saying it, but we need your patience. We do not want to send anyone back into the area if it is unsafe.
BC fire officials stress the Okanagan and Shuswap fires still burn, but crews are making progress.
That's Yvette Brand reporting tonight. A new federal report has warned about the rise in ransomware. Canada's cybersecurity agency says organized cybercrime poses a big threat to the country's national and economic security. Catherine Tunney has more.
If you want to hear about the damage caused by cybercrime, listen to someone from Newfoundland and Labrador.
Everybody knows somebody who had very significant things that were canceled.
In 2021, a ransomware attack plunged the province's healthcare system into chaos, delaying thousands of appointments and procedures.
I had a couple of family members undergoing a couple of different kinds of cancer treatments at the time.
Today, Canada's Cyber Intelligence Agency issued a stark warning, saying ransomware isn't just a concern.
It is a national threat because it not only impacts schools, it impacts hospitals, it impacts critical infrastructure that can in turn have devastating impact on citizens, everything from energy to potentially other sectors of critical infrastructures.
Today, officials also named and shamed one country in particular.
It's no secret that some of these cybercriminal organizations are being harbored in Russia, and Russia may be turning a blind eye to them.
Officials warned that criminals are increasingly partaking in what's called big game hunting, targeting critical infrastructure and essential services in hopes of big payouts from desperate victims. So far, hackers have gone after municipalities in Canada, including an attack in 2020 that knocked the city of St. John's systems offline. A ransomware group went after Toronto's Sick Kids Hospital last year, triggering a code gray, signifying a system failure. Individuals are being hit by cybercrime too. More than $500 million was stolen from Canadians last year. The RCMP says that number is likely higher.
So, we think that could be multiplied by 10.
The RCMP says it is trying to go after international criminals. Meanwhile, cyber experts stress that prevention is key, urging those running critical infrastructure to invest now to secure up-to-date systems, or perhaps pay big later. Catherine Tunney, CBC News, Ottawa.
5 years ago, a CBC News investigation led to a call for more transparency in New Brunswick's reporting of child deaths. But the province has been failing to file a report for more than 2 years, despite the deaths of 25 children. Carissa Donkin has the latest from the Atlantic Investigative Unit.
Former New Brunswick child and youth advocate Norm Bosse doesn't understand why the chief coroner is no longer publishing findings of child death reviews. The chief coroner oversees the committee that carries out the reviews and makes recommendations and is required to report publicly on the committee's work.
And I just absolutely adamant that the public should know about it, and they give themselves, by being transparent, a lot of credibility. And with credibility comes acceptance of the facts of the case, and I think the public takes it a little more seriously too.
Now, in 2017, a CBC News investigation called The Lost Children found that the committee's press releases could be vague. In the wake of that investigation, the committee was revamped to require the chief coroner to include more detail in the public reporting, things like how the child died and their age. More transparency with the goal of finding more solutions. But in 2021, the chief coroner altogether stopped publishing details of the committee's reviews, and it's not clear why. The union representative for frontline child protection staff in the province says child death reviews can be an important learning tool. In the past, they've flagged problems in the system, things like social workers trying to juggle too many cases. Now, the chief coroner wasn't available for an interview with CBC News. She did send along a statement which says that a press release is put out when there's a review that generates recommendations, but it doesn't explain why that hasn't been happening for the last 2 years. We do know there were at least 4 child death reviews that have happened since 2021, and there were at least 25 children known to the Department of Social Development who died in 2021 and 2022. Carissa Donkin, CBC News, Fredericton.
A mass shooting in Florida over the weekend is now being labeled a racially motivated crime. 3 black people were killed after a white gunman opened fire at a store before killing himself. The CBC's Sarah Levitt has the latest on the investigation.
Investigators say they discovered writings by the 21-year-old shooter where he explicitly described his hatred of black people, and one of the guns he was carrying, a rifle, had swastikas on it. The 3 victims were killed near Edward Waters University. It's a small, historically black university. And in fact, we're hearing that the shooter tried to go there first, but left after being confronted by a security guard. The guns he used also were obtained legally. He used a handgun and an AR-15 rifle. He did a background check for them, and they were indeed obtained legally. We do know he was taken in for an involuntary exam due to a mental health crisis in 2017, but that didn't disqualify him from buying the guns.
There's no question about it. He hated blacks, and I think he hated just about everyone that wasn't white. He made that very clear. I want to make sure people understand that he is completely accountable. He understood what he was doing.
All this happening at a time of an important anniversary. 60 years ago today, Martin Luther King Jr. on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial giving his iconic "I Have a Dream" speech. One of the things that he said in that speech is, "Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice." And for him, the important word there is the now. He stressed the immediacy of getting to racial justice.
The same day when you had almost 200,000 Americans standing together for the best of who we are in humanity, we also saw the worst of who we are in humanity. We saw the manifestation of love and the manifestation of hate.
So for that Jacksonville shooting, the Justice Department has announced it is investigating to see if a hate crime was indeed committed. Sarah Levitt, CBC News, Washington.
Finding a quality dairy-free ice cream can be hard, but the demand is pretty high now. Now this Winnipeg shop is upping its game to meet that after the break.
This flow of water into the Pacific Ocean from the Fukushima Daiichi power plant is exactly what protesters have been trying to stop. All over the region, outrage over the radioactive release from the site of the second largest nuclear disaster in history. In 2011, a massive earthquake triggered a tsunami that flooded the plant, causing a meltdown of 3 of its reactors and this explosion. In reaction, China has now banned all aquatic products from Japan, its foreign ministry calling the release a major issue of nuclear safety. From others who have studied the Fukushima problem, a lot of skepticism.
In reviewing the science that's been done, they provided a document called the Radiological Ecological Impact Assessment, and it's terribly flawed. Key data are missing. Experiments were poorly designed. Is there any confidence in TEPCO in their ability to do the proper thing? And the answer, I think, is no. History has shown it.
The Japanese government and the Tokyo Electric Power Company, or TEPCO, which is decommissioning the plant, insists the water has been treated and meets the World Health Organization standards for acceptable levels of the radioactive material tritium. The UN's nuclear watchdog, the IAEA, has also given the green light for the first phase of the release, 1 million metric tons of water flowing into the Pacific over 17 days.
I think the greater concerns are especially around the fishing industry, that, simply by saying that you're going to put radioactive water into the fishing area, that nobody's going to buy those fish.
The sea woman from Busan, South Korea, who dives for abalone, echoes that concern. She says, "My heart is breaking down as the sea, which is like a mother's embrace, would be devastated." The fight is not over. Japan says the discharge of the radioactive water will be slow and monitored, a process that could take 30 to 40 years. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
Hey, I'm Johanna Wagstaff.
And hi there, I'm Rohit Joseph.
And we're asking for 10 minutes of your day to go through the 10 things that the UN recommends we can all do when it comes to climate change.
Please don't leave.
No.
And also, the things aren't new.
We are just wired to not do them.
We promise you to help you figure out your brains, and you and your people can make better choices to combat climate change.
10 Minutes to Save the Planet is available now on CBC Listen and everywhere you get your podcasts.
Ice cream is a classic summertime treat, and a popular shop in Winnipeg is offering a new twist on an old favorite. Cameron McIntosh reports the owners are now serving up a plant-based version based on an ancient ingredient.
His ice cream shop is already a Winnipeg institution. Now Justin Jacob is hoping to go a little bigger.
We kind of identified that a lot of people were trying to get non-dairy ice cream.
None of the dairy-free alternatives he found could really match his desired texture or taste, until he partnered with the University of Manitoba to help develop an experimental formula.
This is just like the liquid lupin mix that we pour into the top of the hopper.
The key ingredient? Lupin beans.
From that, we were able to create a milk and then create a kind of a soft serve base out of that.
Lupin is a pulse crop native to the Mediterranean, now starting to be grown and processed in North America. High in protein and fat, being developed and marketed as a dairy alternative.
What we're working on here is the creation of new ingredients that can replace dairy.
When it comes to ice cream, the formula was developed here at the University of Manitoba, where John Thorosky has been experimenting with dairy-free ice cream.
The lupin was basically outstanding. You know, it was better than most of the other stuff that we had tried in terms of texture.
Initial reviews are positive.
It's delicious. It tastes a little bit nutty. Really, the texture is super smooth, a little bit thicker than the typical soft serve ice cream.
Jacob is experimenting with flavors, also hoping to develop a hard ice cream alternative.
We can get it to, even something that's like wholesale that we, can give to other mom and pop ice cream shops like ours to serve as a non-dairy product, then that would be excellent.
Right now, it's one cone at a time. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
As someone who's dairy-free, I've tried a lot of dairy-free ice creams, Darius. I have never seen ice cream made from a lupin bean.
Me either. Favorite flavor?
Gotta be cookie dough.
Oh, good
You?
choice. Oh, you stole my answer. I'll say Rocky Road.
We can have the same favorite.
Okay,
Mine's
all right,
just
cookie
dairy-free and yours is regular.
Yes, definitely. No offense.
And it's not ice cream weather, is it?
No, definitely not. Weekend was your best bet for ice cream weather. Now we already see some rain happening on the island. I know earlier today Victoria was having quite the thunderstorm, and we've seen that come up through Vancouver now. It's raining just outside here. So expect plenty of rain over the next few days, pretty much wherever you are on the lower mainland. The island should also be seeing some rain over the next few days as well. If we zoom in to closer on Vancouver and Victoria, you can see a lot of that moisture. And just now in the last hour, we're seeing the most rain that we've had so far today. But we've been getting a good amount already, and that's just going to continue over the next few days. Temperatures down as well, so again, not ice cream weather, but we can see the pattern of precipitation. It started on the coast. It's going to head into parts of the southern interior by tomorrow. By Wednesday, we see a much bigger a wider stretch hitting most of the places in the southern interior that were really concerned about these fires. A good amount making its way further north as well, not hitting everywhere, but a good amount of that precipitation sneaking up. Thursday, again, it looks like we're going to have another system move in. This is a different system, but again, plenty of rain being brought all the way up into the central interior. So lots of good news here. Hopefully that moisture will happen over a prolonged period. If it happens over those full 3 days, we might see some of that rain actually soak into the soil and bring our fire danger down for a longer period than what we've had recently, which is where we've had these strong-ish downbursts, but it just doesn't get into the soil and make any lasting impact. In terms of smoke, tomorrow is going to clear up a bit here on the coast. It already wasn't very smoky today, but it'll be a bit better. Just some local smoke for the most part in the south, very smoky up north. You got to zoom. And then tonight, we can expect temperatures to stay around seasonal for our lows. Tomorrow, temperatures come back down to seasonal in the south, and we get to see that rain on the coast. Still above seasonal up north, and then here in Vancouver, a pretty Vancouver forecast. Lots of rain happening this week, a couple of days of sun, and then the chance of some rain recurring again next week.
All right, thanks, Darius.
Thank you.
Well, in the wake of those devastating Lahaina wildfires on the island of Maui in Hawaii, a Richmond eatery was the scene of a colorful fundraiser over the weekend in support of those who've been affected. As Yasmin Renea reports, the event featuring hula dancing and traditional Hawaiian food all happened for a good cause.
A tribute to Lahaina, a community ravaged by wildfire.
We're here today to help raise awareness and funds for Maui and for Lahaina town particularly. This is a devastation as no one has seen before.
Fires swept through historic Lahaina earlier this month, killing at least 115 people and destroying hundreds of homes and businesses. It's the deadliest U.S. wildfire in more than a century.
There's no words. We've all seen the images. It's gone. It's obliterated. It's just the worst. It's the worst feeling.
Here in BC, people are trying to help through hula.
You want to do something. You want to do anything you can do. And even just being here, being together, it's going to create a wave that's going to ripple across, and they will feel it. I know it. I just know it.
Sunday's fundraiser featuring 16 performances with dances from Hawaii and other Polynesian islands. The event was held at a new Hawaiian grill in Richmond, which is donating 20% of its proceeds to the Maui Strong Fund, as well as 2 weeks' worth of tips.
The tip jar from August the 16th to now, I think, has cash is over $480, and today like hundreds of dollars are going in there today.
The restaurant was packed with people enjoying traditional Hawaiian food, all for a good cause.
They're able to help rebuild and create more memories to go back to, and create more memories of a new rebuilt Lahaina will be nice.
British Columbians doing what they can to help from far away. Yasmin Ranea, CBC News, Richmond.
Coming up, we're not going to show it to you just yet. You have to stick around. The people who wrestle in gravy and why they do it next.
Have a great day. Okay. This is Butter. She is a teacup Chihuahua, purebred. We got her from Ronson, Ontario, so she is Canadian puppers, and she loves Starbucks. We have always had dogs, so not having a dog in my life was just not really an option. She's a part of the family.
Yeah, I teach an introductory course called Animals and Humans in Society, but I also teach a third-year course called The Evolution of the Dog-Human Relationship. Dogs are ubiquitous in our society. They're everywhere. They are companions. They are known to be our companions. I don't have children. Interestingly, a lot of my colleagues in this field don't have children. I've always found that really interesting. But I don't get much greater joy from things as I do from my dog.
I have borderline personality disorder, so Sushi helps me with that. And I also have dopa responsive dystonia, which is lack of dopamine in the brain, and I'm on a Parkinson's medication to be able to walk every day. So Sushi, I got her when she was 7 weeks, and I started training her as a puppy to walk with me. If my legs are too bad, if she sees me fall, she'll go underneath my head and be like, hey. Or if I'm having my heart will race, she'll sit on my heart or on my chest to let me know, hey, Mom, pet me. Calm down your heart. The love for Sushi is like, you can love humans, you can love your children, you can love whoever. But the love between a dog and a human, it's hard to explain.
Baxter is a rescue to me a year and a half ago. And when we got him, I worked here and we were looking to have some kind of, they had pet therapy, but COVID kind of got in the way of that. But we decided that he had such a great temperament that we would train him. So he got certified. He started visiting and everybody just was over the moon, staff, patients, families. And now when I come in, they look down at my feet or for the buggy, where's Baxter? It's not like, good morning, Maria, it's where's Baxter? In this situation, we basically visit families and patients. A lot of our patients had dogs at home and hadn't been around their pets, so they just bring calmness and some kind of love. A lot of petting. He doesn't do tricks or anything. He's a champ. He really is.
Humans, as we now exist, as we've evolved into the current human beings that we are, have actually co-evolved with dogs. Dogs are the oldest living domesticated animal, and they literally have co-evolved and been alongside humans for about as long as humans have been around. So it's really interesting when you think logically, why are we so connected? It's not just because they're cute, they're wonderful, they're lovable, they're trainable. Also, they've been around for the long haul.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
On September 16th, join CBC Vancouver at the second annual Come Toward the Fire, a free outdoor festival celebrating Indigenous community, culture, and creativity. Visit cometowardthefire.com. And September is Literacy Month. Have fun and support the cause by joining CBC Vancouver's Dan Burrett at Dakota's Team Trivia Challenge on September 27th. For tickets, register at dakota.ca.
Well, wrestling is about pitting your physical strength against a rival and hopefully coming out on top.
We're gonna get down, we're gonna get dirty. World Gravy Wrestling, baby!
Yeah, you heard him. Gravy wrestling. The World Gravy Wrestling Championships took place today in the UK. Wrestlers battle it out one-on-one in a gravy-filled pit, and the event helps raise money for local hospice. Some will go home with a championship trophy. For the rest, well, it's just gravy. Some pretty dark gravy. It's looking a little oil-like. I'm not sure you want to eat that or even wrestle in it, really, but kudos to these guys. That's it for our show tonight. Thank you so much for watching CBC Vancouver News, and we will see you tomorrow.